Okay, we're back with the Mormon News Roundup time. I am your humble host, Steve Ace. That is talent on loan from Kolob. I'm coming to you from the crossroads of the East where the truth runs free. We will be ruminating on the great and spacious beehive today. Thank you so much for joining us. It is July 6th, 2026, episode 165. 168 is in the books. We have a giant show here, kind of a 2-in-1 because I was out of town last week. We will be talking about BYU quarterback gRape allegations, highly disturbing content. We will talk about Lori Vallow's insane jailhouse interview after she has been found guilty yet again for the death of her fourth husband, Charles Vallow. We'll talk about the secret lives of Mormon wives teaming up with Dancing with the Stars. And finally, and our featured news article is the Mormon Church is now paying online influencers. This is absolutely incredible. Let's kick things off right off here with civil lawsuit against BYU quarterback Jake Retzloff has been dismissed, and the BYU Cougar faithful and Latter-day Saints are generally rejoicing in this incredible turn of events here. This is absolutely a thunderbolt across the sky here. Let's see what's going on with BYU.
Case alleging BYU quarterback Jake Retzloff committed rape and sexual assault is dismissed, but in denying the allegations, he admitted to having premarital sex.
I mean, he basically made a mistake, and, the honor code is basically not above anybody.
Retzloff filed a response to the complaint Friday, in which he denied any abusive conduct and said the November 2023 meeting was consensual. The documents add that he and the Jane Doe had continued to text the following year about lighthearted topics like the Utah-BYU rivalry. For fans of BYU like Caleb Hatch,
BYU football is practically everything. I mean, I was born into this.
Watching Retzloff's rise this past season,
it was a very pleasant surprise for me. It was an amazing year.
Has made what's followed in the off-season especially difficult.
For him to have let this happen, it definitely was a moment of weakness.
Brandon Gurney with the Provo Daily Herald says that violation could carry a suspension that sidelines Retzloff for 7 games. It's expected that he would transfer.
It was very unlikely that Jake Retzloff will be on the roster for this coming season unless something dramatic happens in the coming days.
Even though Retzloff is absolved of the legal issues he's faced over the past month, Gurney says that should not impact the way the university looks at his honor code violation.
It's irrespective of any civil case. BYU has its honor code. It operates outside of the courtroom.
In more than 20 years of covering the Cougs, Gurney adds that it's up there among their most significant honor code incidents.
This is the biggest one since Brandon Davies back in 2011, which preempted what many anticipated would be a deep tournament run during the Jimmer Fredette years.
Gurney notes the suit came in May after the transfer portal had closed, so the team likely loses a leader they can't replace.
But mentality is a big thing in any athletics, and locker room and culture. That's a really big thing, and it really affects the overall play of the team in general.
And if the expected punishment does get handed down,
BYU's had an influx of a lot of really top-end recruits in recent years. A lot of guys that are kind of outside the box, you might say, with what BYU typically attracts. But I think this is BYU's way of maybe just saying, hey, we're serious about the honor code. We're serious about these standards.
In Provo, Jeremy Toms, Fox 13 News.
Obviously, this is a really big article for the BYU faithful. It really dominated the news cycle for this last week cycle. There's no doubt about that. A couple of last thoughts here. First of all, I spent all of last week at the BYU on BYU campus this last week. It was really great to be back at my alma mater. I love spending time there. I spent a long period of time working full time in these type of situations. Quite frankly, I spent 3 years full time in domestic violence response and in gRape response and in sexual abuse prevention full time for the federal government. And I worked part time for the federal government before that for 5 years. So I spent a lot of time in this field. So I'm not just some random dude podcaster who happens to talk about this particular issue. So a couple of things that were brought up. Just because somebody texts someone afterwards does not mean that they had consensual sex with them. That is a complete and utter misnomer. This is obviously a very big news article. We're going to be giving you a great deal of coverage on it. And yes, if you think back to Brandon Davies, this was the last time that the BYU athlete or a significant BYU athlete ran afoul of the BYU honor code. And maybe that cost BYU because he he was with Jimmer Fredette during that long run. I think that BYU made it to the Sweet 16 during that time frame, and because he admitted to having consensual sex with another student, he was sidelined for that particular game, and that's when BYU lost. Brandon Davies was a big athlete at that time. So just a couple of thoughts. We will be giving you quite a bit of coverage on this. In particular here, this is covered by the Salt Lake Tribune here. BYU quarterback Jake Retzloff states in a new court filing that he had sex with a woman who accused him of assault, but his actions were part of a normal evening of consensual interaction. That's basically the Salt Lake Tribune's takeaway. Let's not forget here that Jake here is not a member of the church. I believe that he aligns himself with the Jewish faith, or at least he was raised in that tradition. But he is still, according to BYU's honor code, subject to discipline, regardless of whether he claims that the interaction was normal and consensual. And there's been a lot of really bad takes on Twitter. I spent a lot of time over there this week. And there's just a lot of really horrific male in particular takes here, where Stone cut out without hand says, keep the law of chastity. Life is simpler. Well, this is what Jimmy is saying here. Retzloff should file a countersuit. I would try to ruin the girl if she did that to me, uncover every rock in her world, and embarrass her publicly, destroy her life. She deserves it. She obviously lied, cost him his reputation and millions. I find this take to be absolutely horrific. Just because a case has been dismissed doesn't mean that someone lied. I mean, there can be a lot of reasons that a case is dismissed. Usually it's because a prosecutor finds that there is insufficient evidence to bring a case to trial, and that the prosecutor doesn't think that they will be able to meet the burden of proof. And of course, in a civil suit, the burden of proof is lesser. It's just beyond a preponderance of the evidence rather than beyond a reasonable doubt. She deserves to have her life destroyed because she said that what a disgusting take. She deserves to have her life destroyed because she said that Jake didn't have consent to have sex with her. No one deserves to have their life destroyed. I disagree with this take, and there's a lot of these absolutely terrible takes out there. A couple of other takes. We're going to give you a lot on this because this is a really big one here in the Salt Lake Tribune. And not only that, the Deseret News covered this as well. Sources, he will be facing, and this is the whole point here, he would be facing a 7-game suspension. And because he's such a star quarterback, he find that to be, I guess he didn't want to go through that. So he's going to transfer to another major college football program. His civil case has been quote unquote resolved this week, but the redshirt senior will transfer out of BYU. And of course, BYU had a really fantastic football season this last year, did very, very well, even though they didn't win the Pac-12. Because they lost 2 games, but at any rate, he was the absolute star and was a welcome addition to the roster. And now he is turning his back on Brigham Young.
I thought Retzloff transferring this soon.
Now he's turning his back on Brigham Young University. Here we go.
Was unlikely. Sources say I may have been wrong. Sunday evening, Jay Drew of the Deseret News put out this article saying that Jake will transfer to another major college football program. In the article, Jay says Retzloff's locker has already been cleaned out, and he's expected to announce this week that he'll play for another school. A source told Jay that team is, quote, in desperate need of an experienced college quarterback. The source confirmed to BYU informant Jake about his suspension on Thursday. That's the day before the news from Jake's lawyers came out. So what about the pending lawsuit? How would another school view that? Jay's source says Retzloff's lawyers expect it to be resolved early this week. Where do you think the BYU Cougar is headed?
Yeah, he's going to be headed to another major program. And that's a question is he's going to still have these allegations, even though the civil lawsuit has been dismissed, the allegations are still out there. Will another school embrace him? Well, as we've come to find out many times in the past, people prioritize wins over what is doing the right thing, even though the case has been dismissed and apparently they're not going to be able to take it to trial. People really want their football teams to win, and BYU is no exception to that. There's no doubt about that. A couple of other takes here. Yes, he has entered the portal. Bro has 8 weeks now to find a new team.
We have a new developing story in college football. Jake Retzloff, the quarterback at BYU, is entering the transfer portal. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. He's one of the biggest names we've seen enter the transfer portal this offseason. This is all apparently because he disobeyed the honor code at BYU. That school is mad strict, but you signed up to go to BYU. You got to follow their rules. This is crazy. He has like 8 weeks to find a job. The college football season is right around the corner. And he was basically going to be suspended for 7 games with all this stuff going on. And Of course you want to leave and play a full season. 7-game suspension is crazy. And he's one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12. Led BYU to an 11-win season. And his stats aren't bad. Almost 3,000 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Not a great QBR, but you really see the development he's had over the course of his career so far. He also rushed for 400 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's actually very mobile, it seems like. So anyone that's getting him in the portal, it's a huge get. I find it hard to believe that someone's going to take him with 8 weeks before the season starts. It's a lot of learning, getting used to their playbook. But hey, the portal's crazy. Someone is going to take him. But the main question is who? I mean, we're so close to the season. Who needs a quarterback right now?
Very interesting question. Very interesting development here. BYU is not only that here. I've got a couple of other things here. BYU is going to continue to run. This is going to become increasingly common as BYU's very strict honor code here diverges from, shall we say, the world's actions here. We're going to see this become much more common. But BYU is not done here landing big time recruits here. Just a little diversion here. BYU even landed the #1 ranked uncommitted quarterback today in this calendar year. And it also landed the #1 high school basketball player in the country. This is the whole issue here. We're going to have problems with these individuals who want to go to BYU for various reasons, running afoul of the honor code.
Since when did BYU get all of this NIL money, bro? I don't like it, man. Why is BYU of all teams getting this kind of money? I'm kidding. I don't care. But still, it's crazy. They just got the #1 uncommitted QB in the 2026 class. He announced on the Pat McAfee show that he's going to BYU. He's the highest ranked quarterback BYU has seen in the ranking era, and he chose him over Oregon. That's crazy to me. Why would you choose BYU over Oregon? And of course, we saw AJ DeBonsa commit here, the #1 overall recruit in the 2025 class. Can you imagine getting a 5-star player in both football and basketball? It doesn't get any better for BYU. It really is true. With all of this money, they're actually going to be insane in the Big 12. I mean, they're getting big-time recruits. They have all this NIL money coming in. They're doing work in the portal. I mean, what more could you ask for? And it's all changed at BYU. It's like a full-time job now. They're acting like professionals, and it's just a whole different vibe in Provo. This really goes to show that a team like BYU can get really good through NIL. This was a team that really wasn't that great before, but now they're going to be insane.
Yeah, so this is the most amazing thing is because the Mormon Church is worth, I don't know, about $350 billion with seemingly endless amounts of wealth that can be thrown at these athletes. Yeah, Jake is going to, shall we say, greener pastures, but as soon as he's gone, he's going to be filled in by other people who want some of that sweet, sweet cheddar. And the Mormon Church, if there's one thing you know about Mormonism, they have a hell of a lot of money, and they're going to be able to replace Jake. Jake reportedly transferring. Well, a couple of other takes here. This is such a big national news story here. I can't tell you how many articles were around this week. Let's see what's going on.
It is now set in stone. BYU quarterback Jake Retzlaff will no longer be the BYU quarterback. In fact, he will probably transfer. He had some issues with...
You think this is funny? Look at the looks on these faces. You think this is funny? He had some issues. He was credibly accused of sexual abuse here, and they think that this is having some issues. They think that this is funny. This is the typical bro takes here from a lot of faithful Latter-day Saints here.
A woman alleging stuff, and he sadly had to give out a comment the opposite way, saying, nope, it was consensual, which, if you know BYU, isn't a good enough argument because none of that is allowed under the BYU Honor Code.
Sadly, he had to release a statement. Sadly. How about he should take some responsibility?
He was just handed the 7-game suspension, to which he said he will now transfer.
Well, he was threatened with a 7-game suspension. I don't know if it was actually handed down.
This is not the first time something like this has happened at BYU, with a star athlete being suspended, removed. This happened with Brandon Davies, a basketball player during the Jimmer Fredette era, and also with Jamal Williams, who is now a very prominent NFL running back. BYU will be without a expected quarterback now and needing to go to their second string, which is either McKay or Bear. And if you're wondering about that 5-star quarterback they just got for the 2026 season, well, he is actually serving a 1-year mission. So they don't get him this year or next year. They supposedly get him in 2027, which is weird because I didn't even know 1-year missions were a thing. But BYU is going to have some trouble at the quarterback position for quite a while, it seems like.
Yeah, we will talk about these 1-year missions just a little bit later. Yes, if you're a star pampered athlete at BYU, you get to serve a 1-year mission rather than a 2-year mission, because what's more important, spreading the glorious polygamous gospel of Joseph Smith or throwing the pigskin into the end zone? And I can tell you that for Mormon Jesus, the more important is the latter and not the former. We will be returning to that just in a minute. I find these takes to be absolutely disgusting. He ran into some issues, unfortunately for him. How about he was credibly accused of sexual abuse, even and gRape allegations, even though it was not brought to trial, and that he should take accountability for his horrific actions. Just because something is not proved guilty doesn't mean that there's no smoke. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Listen, I spent, like I said, 8 years in this particular field full time. I went through every training that a person can go through. Women, we should be believing all women, and believe me, none of these bros do. In fact, none of them will even want to talk about what she had to go through. Do you think that someone like her is going to bring something like this up just for her own particular, if something didn't happen? I can tell you that the statistics from the Department of Justice and many others show that over 90% of these women who bring these type of allegations, they do so in good faith. And I have rarely seen someone do something like this in bad faith. More takes here.
There is now an official update on the Jake Retzlaff situation. Friday, Retzlaff and his lawyers filed court documents officially denying the allegations. In the response, Retzlaff said that he and the plaintiff had a normal evening of consensual interaction. Retzlaff's response claims that after the night together, the plaintiff continued to exchange friendly and flirty texts and direct messages with him. The official response says that there was no mention of anything being unpleasant in any way in the messages following. They allege there was no contact during the most recent football season. After the bowl game is when the plaintiff allegedly hired a Salt Lake City lawyer and made the first ever claim of linked to a large monetary demand from Mr. Retzlaff. This is all from Retzlaff's official response, and we'll see how it all plays out going forward.
Yeah, there seems to be this false conception here that if you have other normal, shall we say, normal interactions with someone after a supposed account, you have non-consensual sex with someone, and if you send them a text message afterwards, that must mean that there was consensual sex. That's not how this works. This is a deep level of ignorance from most of these men here. A couple more here.
I don't walk in his shoes. I don't live in the BYU's honor code. But at the end of the day, like I said, he committed to BYU. He knew the honor code. He decided to break it, knowing that if he gets caught, there is consequences, and now he has to face the consequences.
Like I said, this is going to be very much more common as the BYU, as these athletes go to BYU, and as the idea that premarital sex is something that's going to get you a 7-game suspension, as that becomes increasingly more passé, we're going to see more and more of these type of situations. Yes, the case has been dismissed.
Just today, I broke down Jake Retzlaff's explosive response to the SA allegations, where he laid out his version of events, claimed it was consensual, and he backed it up with detailed text messages, and the case has now been dismissed with prejudice. That means it's over. It can't be refiled. Now, legally speaking, a dismissal like this, especially one that's jointly filed, almost always signals that both parties agreed to walk away. The text messages in Jake's filing probably changed everything. If they showed ongoing communication, no signs of trauma, but here's the kicker. The damage is already done. Jake's facing a 7-game suspension at BYU, not for assault, but for admitting to consensual premarital, which violates the honor code at BYU. And now he's officially transferring out. This case, whether true or not, just ended his BYU career. Some people are even wondering, was this planned? The timing couldn't have been more brutal for BYU football. Let's talk about it. Be kind in the comments.
Wow. See, more bad thought processes here. Like I said, I've spent a lot of time in this industry. Just because you send a text message to someone afterwards does not mean that the sex was consensual. This is the conclusion here doesn't follow the premise here. What none of these people really want to talk about is the giant elephant in the room. There could have been a major payment here, a major settlement. That is the reason that this case was dismissed. And this is very conspiratorial. I don't necessarily be able to back this up here, but you have a lot of big time LDS donors who support the BYU football program with very, very deep pockets here. They could have just come to the table, gave her a large amount of money. Now we have NDAAs, and the case was settled quietly out of court. In fact, I believe, in my humble estimation, that this is the most likely thing that happened in this particular case. Not because the prosecutor didn't want to bring it because of a lack of evidence, but because somebody paid them off. Here's from one of my absolutely most horrific takes here out on X. If you're following at Black Blessed LDS, you will find many horrific takes like this here. Let's check this out here. He's responding to Pete Thamel, who says, the woman who accused BYU quarterback Jake Retzlaff of SA in a civil suit has withdrawn her case, sources tell me. The paperwork has been filed to end the case. This was just a couple of days ago here on June 30th, 2025. And this is what Troy said. Could be legit, but suspicious AF with the timing. There's always a reason for these Mormon men to find reasons that you should not believe these the woman who's involved here. The timing, look, sometimes it takes a long time for people to come to grips with having been violated, and their timing can take a long time. It can take years. It can take a lifetime. Some people don't tell anyone ever. There's no timing that's involved here. These people betray a complete lack of knowledge of what it's like to have to come to grips with something like this. Really, so many bad Mormon men takes on this. BYU fans are worried that their schools, and this is among many bad takes. This is probably one of the worst. We have the holy war between BYU and the University of Utah. By the way, I went to both of these schools as students, and then I later taught at both of these schools as faculty members. So I know a thing or two about this particular holy war, by the way. And this is what the BYU, this is the disgusting takes here. There are just so many. BYU fans are worried that schools will send their women to seduce BYU players. Are you absolutely kidding me?
Has Utah found the ultimate loophole to winning the Holy War every year? Well, according to BYU fans, they have, as according to those same fans, Utah is going to send their women to seduce BYU players so they get suspended.
That is absolutely gross.
Let me explain. In case you missed it, BYU quarterback Jake Retzlaff was suspended for 7 games for violating BYU's honor code. What did he do at the end of the day? Well, he had to admit that he had premarital sex with a girl, which is deeply, deeply against BYU's code. The precedent has been set, though, by BYU. BYU is basically saying they're willing to suspend key players for football and basketball, which has led to some BYU fans panicking, thinking that Utah is going to do stuff like this. Quote, they're celebrating because they figured out how easy it is to ruin the lives and careers of BYU athletes. They just have to send their female students to seduce our star players, then announce they had sex, and the players will be kicked out with no repercussions on them.
These are ridiculous tweets. These are ridiculous takes.
Those are some insane women if they actually try that, and they must be really, really dedicated to the Utes winning the Holy War. But what do you think? Do you think this is a good strategy for ruining BYU athletics? Let me know in the comment section below.
These are absolutely ridiculous takes here, that you think that women are going to be falsifying allegations against a BYU star football players and basketball players. Do you know what it takes to try to go through one of these? You know, the reputation typically that these women, they take a ding on their reputation. They're often slut shamed. They're often vilified. You think that somebody's just going to do that because they want to win a football game? You got another thing coming. The ignorance here is really, really stupefying here. A couple more here. BYU, let's just give you a couple more takes.
BYU made $19 million, for example, from their media rights deal this past year from the Big 12. They're going to be the full share member this coming year, which the projection is $31+ million. That's an extra $12 million that BYU is going to be able to build into that budget. I will say it right now on the record, the BYU will absorb this $20.5 million hit better than almost anybody across college athletics. As I understand it, 90% plus of college athletic departments operate at a deficit. We're talking about every other school in the Big 12 having to cut budgets, whether it's personnel, travel, and this adds another $20.5 million to a budget that's already stretched thin. Good luck absorbing that. BYU will be able to absorb it because they practice what they preach, and that is living within their means.
Okay, so BYU is apparently going to take a hit in its revenue sharing in the Big 12, and it's going to be down a couple of $1 million. And they're going to be able to absorb it because they practice what they preach. No, they're going to be able to absorb it because they fraudulently and shamefully hoarded hundreds of billions of dollars. That's why they're able to pay off people and settle civil suits outside of court and be able to pay their athletes. That's the reason, not because they live within their means. Now, returning to the earlier issue here that we heard in one of the takes of 1-year missions for star BYU athletes here, will BYU recruit Ryder Lyons serve a 1-year LDS mission? Is there such a thing as 1-year mission? That never used to be a thing, but folks, apparently it is. Ryder Lyons, a top BYU recruit, has just announced that he will play for BYU for a rumored $5 million. Not only are these star athletes able to serve 1-year missions, they are handsomely compensated. And where does that money come from? I do wonder, does the widow's mite go towards these athletes and towards covering up SA as well? Let's not forget, when that grandma from San Pete is writing that tithing check, some of that is going to cover up Jake's horrific actions. But anyway, returning to this point here, 1-year missions, I find that to be very remarkable. Rebecca Biblioteca is going to give us this take here. Let's see what's going on with 1-year missions.
Is there such a thing as a 1-year LDS proselyting mission? It seems like there is if you're a football player. Ryder Lyons just declared that he is going to play for BYU, as I understand it, $5 million NIL, but that's another story. Anyway, he talks about going on an LDS mission first, and it sounds like it's only going to be 1 year. Looks like he'll be putting his papers in August 2025, graduating early in December 2025, starting his mission, January, February-ish, 2026. And then back in, the spring or the summer to train to start 2027 BYU season. His brother, Walker Lyons, did the same thing. This is what's really interesting. He is playing for the Trojans, USC, and he went on a mission from February 2023 home by June of 2024 to start that season. Let me know what you think about a 1-year mission for certain people. I think there are more.
Yeah, so the hypocrisy here can't be the hypocrisy, in my opinion, here can't be overstated. Absolutely. Why do star BYU athletes get to serve only a 1-year mission and not everyone else? That is certainly a big conundrum. As far as the 1-year mission concept is concerned, I'm a big fan of a 1-year mission. In fact, I'm a big fan of the 1-month mission. In fact, I'm a big fan of the 1-week mission. In fact, I'm a huge fan of the 1-day mission. In fact, I'm a big fan of no mission whatsoever. So the less missionary effort that people are shamed into going to and are told that they need to do it because the Mormon Jesus tells them to, I think is a good thing. But as far as the hypocrisy here, why do you have to be a star BYU football player or star BYU basketball player in order to have a 1-year mission? Whereas if you're just a regular Joe or a regular gal, then you serve a 2-year mission. What the hell is the deal with that? Are Mormon missions available for elite athletes? This is generally unquotable over there. Megan is also going to give us a take here. Are they available? They certainly are.
Missions being offered to elite male athletes. On X, Kevin John made a post that says, Ryder Lyons will graduate from high school in December. He will then go on a 1-year mission. He will join the BYU football program for the fall 2027 season. The Deseret News says, for Cougar fans everywhere, the commitment of 5-star quarterback Ryder Lyons to BYU bordered on a spiritual experience. Lyons has said he will graduate from Folsom High in the Sacramento area this coming December. That's December of 2025, and depart on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints next January of 2026. He said he will submit his mission papers in August and expects to get his missionary assignment via email a few weeks after that. Then on ESPN it says, while Lyons will sign as part of BYU's 2026 class later this year, he intends to serve a Latter-day Saint mission after graduation next year and will not formally join the Cougars until the spring of 2027. If he leaves for his mission in January of 2026 and starts spring football for BYU in 2027, his mission will only be a year. It seems that his brother, Walker Lyons, currently playing for the USC Trojans, also served a one-year mission from February of 2023 to June of 2024.
Very interesting stuff. So, first of all, how many others have served a one-year Mormon mission and we didn't even know about it? I do wonder about that. And the spiritual experience of signing star athletes, I can virtually guarantee you that those big-time Mormon general authorities on the BYU Board of Trustees feel the spirit very deeply when they sign one of these big-time athletes to BYU. There's no doubt about that. But BYU application trends, we're going to spend a lot of time on BYU today. My alma mater, have a couple of degrees there. I worked either full or part-time for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for 24 years. A huge amount of that was at BYU Provo. Spent the entire last week on BYU campus. I know a thing or two about BYU Provo, but the BYU application trends here are definitely on the decline. In fact, acceptance and let's look at these trends here that is happening here with BYU.
If you think BYU isn't the problem, here's some data. Let's talk 10-year trends. So in 2015, BYU had about 13,300 applicants, and the acceptance rate was 48%. Compared to 2024, the total number of applicants was 13,400, and the acceptance rate is 69%. To give you an idea of how that compares to other universities, the University of Utah in 2015 had 12,000 applicants and an 81% acceptance rate. And in 2024 had 23,000 applicants and an 87% acceptance rate. And to sum up the math of it all, that means the University of Utah's applications increased by 97%, and BYU's applications increased by 0.75. And I can already hear people in my DMs, if you don't want to go there, don't go. That is my problem. I wanted to be there. I grew up Mormon and I had every intention of following the rules. People aren't perfect. And this university does not allow people to make reasonable mistakes without a crazy amount of shame and guilt and embarrassment. Because yeah, if you need to be held accountable by being kicked out of the university, do you realize what that does to you mentally when you're 18, 19, 20 years old? There is such a lack of empathy for people who go to BYU who are still trying to figure out their lives. If that is you, please don't go to this school. I sincerely think had I gone anywhere else, there's a small chance I could have stayed Mormon because I would have never seen that side of the faith. Please think about what you're doing.
Wow, what a take. First of all, BYU has an exceptionally high acceptance rate. It's pretty darn high here. You know, big time elite schools like Harvard University only have a 5%, but BYU's is pretty high. What we've seen here is the number of people applying to BYU is not keeping up with the other Intermountain West schools like the University of Utah. And there's so many reasons for that. I think the Jake quarterback scandal is one reason that we see that. I mean, Gordon Monson, who is wrote a great column this week, which we don't have time to get into, at the Salt Lake Tribune that discussed this. He is a Latter-day Saint and he covered sports for a long time. And he said that this whole Jake situation shows that, you know, people who go to BYU, if they do anything that runs afoul of the honor code, that they are immediately kicked out, and that there's no room for a person to make a mistake. Now, I think that is particularly a bad analogy with Jake here, because it's alleged that he just didn't make a mistake. It's alleged here that he had non-consensual sex with another person. So I think that is an apples and oranges comparison. But I do think that what she said here rings true to me from somebody who worked a long time at BYU. Now, that's all that I have for you on BYU. We spent a long time on there because this is the #1 article of the last week and a half. This really was very, very big article. Now, if you can leave me a comment below, what do you think about Jake and the entire situation? By the way, you can follow the Mormon News Roundup. We are on Instagram, we are on TikTok, we are on X, and we are on Facebook. We'd be grateful if you followed us over there on social media, left me a comment as to what you think about this entire Jake situation. I'd be very grateful for that. Transitioning to our second of 4 basic articles today, we have the Lori Vallow Daybell trial that has wrapped up, and she's given a psychopathic interview here just recently with Nate Easton of the East Idaho News. Nate is a legend, and we're gonna get the thoughts here from one of my favorite followers out there who does a lot of great work over there on TikTok. Oh, I don't have her take. Oh, yes, I do. I definitely do. Here we go.
Lori Vallow Dabo. She's in full religious delusion.
And you've said you'll be exonerated, and he will too.
Absolutely, we will.
Will that be before he's executed?
Yes, Nate, before he's executed.
Which I'm kind of pissed because being in that state, she's actually not suffering very much.
I know that you are LDS as well as I am, and you're well aware that the 3 Nephites given the death penalty 7 times. After Jesus personally translated them, okay, convicted and given the death penalty 7 times. And where are they today?
I don't know.
They're still wandering the earth.
She actually believes it's for a purpose and this is her higher calling, and she's actually really the victim.
So in 2017, I was told by the Lord that I was going to become like Job and lose everything.
Oh my God.
This is all the Lord's doing. And guess what? He's going to come forward and tell it all. And I don't have to. Down for posterity. You know what Jesus told me? He said, this is going to be real good scripture reading in the future. These are the last days, right? We believe that. You believe that, right?
Didn't you say that Jesus was going to be back before the end of that trial? Did you say
No,
that?
absolutely
You never said
not.
that.
I have never, Chad has never, we've never given a date. We're going with what the prophet says. When President Nelson gets up and says, these are the last days, we need to prepare for the second coming.
And she does compare herself to the 3 Nephites.
Yep.
And such.
Lori, if you could go back 6 years, would you change anything?
We were foreordained to do this mission, right? The Lord is using Chad and I right now, and this is what he's told us, as instruments in his hands. What do you think he's trying to teach the people? His church. What do you think he's trying to teach his people right now? He has to have an earthquake. It has to be so detrimental. It has to be get everybody's attention. Our case has done that. And what is he doing with that divide? He calls it, you know what Jesus told me? He calls it the great divide. What do you think he's doing with it?
I don't know, but
He's teaching people not to judge. Don't judge something. You weren't there. You don't know what happened. Don't judge. He's separating the wheat from the tares right now in his own house. And he's using Chad and I to do it. All the prophets, all the apostles, everyone in the LDS Church is saying, prepare. Gather Israel on both sides of the veil. I was gathering Israel on both sides of the veil. And Jesus came there. That's his house. And he talked to me. And he told me that he needed me to do a mission for him. And this is what we're doing. You know, there's always a Judas. People think that Judas is a villain. And Judas is not a villain. You know what Judas was? Judas was a vessel. Judas was a vessel for God's plan to come to fruition. And he told me the other day, it's coming to full fruition.
God did?
Yes. God has told me lots of things, and this is one of the things that he told me. He's using us as instruments in his hands to separate the wheat from the tares. That's not how I picture my children. I know where they are in heaven. I know what they're doing. They have come to visit me. So I don't see them as bones. If anybody dies and you go to a cemetery and you dig them up 9 months later, you're not going to like what you find. It's not going to be
They're not
pretty.
going to look like that.
Once your spirit leaves your body and goes to heaven, when you're out of your body and you're your real self and your eternal self and who you are, you could care less what happens to your body. I've had that experience. Chad's had that experience. There's others that have had that experience. So my children are in their eternity. They're doing well. They're happy. They're moving on. They don't want me to be sad. They came to me because they don't want me to be sad. They said, Mom, you didn't do anything wrong. Well, I got accused of and convicted of, just like the 3 Nephites. What crime did they commit that they got 7 death penalties for? I'm in good company. I'm in good company, and in heaven, I will be in their company. And I didn't do anything that deserves this kind of punishment. But God did want me here. He did want me in here with these women. And he wanted me to lift and strengthen women and uplift them in these family tragedies, lift each other there until Jesus comes. And when he comes, he's going to set everybody in the prisons free. And all those who are unjustly and wrongfully convicted, like me and like these others, we will be walking free on this earth, and we will be walking with Jesus, and that's what we're going to do.
Oh my gosh, that is so hard to listen to, such religious bullshit. My gosh. Jen, from All Those Opposed, summarized a lot of the religious aspects of that particularly horrific interview from Lori Daybell. Absolutely disgusting, hard to listen to. Religious delusion that runs deep, not only in Lori, but in so many other deluded theists. Let's not forget that she's still a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She said, I'm a member. And she said that Nate is a member. She hasn't been excommunicated. And just remember that when the church comes for your humble host here for his nasty podcast, that Lori is still on the books, whereas I won't be at that time. The hypocrisy is really thick. This last days nonsense. People talk. I've had so many interactions with people in the comment sections of the social media where they say, why can't you just leave my church alone? Well, it's this last days nonsense that poisons people's minds. There's no evidence that we're in the last days here. And when you have fear-mongering apocalyptic nonsense like this, people like Lori Vallow Daybell are going to take that and you do horrific things with this. And she's still plugging the Mormon church. Isn't that sweet? Isn't that amazing? She says that we shouldn't judge people because Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount said, judge not that ye be not judged. I don't think so. When you unalive two of your children, your ex-husband's wife and one of your former husbands and maybe a couple of other people while we're at it, we're going to judge you, Lori, because you're one sick puppy. She visited the LDS temple absolutely daily and said that Jesus told her what to do. How can a religious person argue against that? How do you know that Jesus didn't visit Lori? You don't know. That's the whole problem here. By the way, if this particular portion of this video does get copyright taken down off of YouTube, which it might because that interview is such a blockbuster, even though I chopped it up thanks to Jen. You can find full episodes of the Mormon News Roundup on Patreon, and you'll able to get full early access of that and with no copyright issues whatsoever. She unalived her children, but they are doing well. My gosh, I barely was able to make it through that absolutely horrific take here. Thanks, Jen, for giving us the best takes on this. And Jen Next Door, who has a very popular X account, also talked about Lori Vallow. I just want to show that to you as well here. Lori Daybell is an extreme example of how fear-based teachings in the LDS Church can impact people. She said she was just following President Nelson and preparing for the second coming. Yes, indeed she was. Side note, Nemo, the Mormon, was excommunicated for saying words the church didn't like, but Lori Vallow Daybell is still a member. What a sick situation there. Absolutely terrible here. As far as judging other people, we're going to get Kristen Walker Smith, who's also going to talk about whether we should judge people here. And she's going to give us her faithful take on the Lori Vallow Daybell interview here.
With Lori Daybell, she is in prison on a mission from God to teach Latter-day Saints not to judge. Unfortunately, I think this whole idea of not judging is becoming rampant within the world and even in the church. You do you is like the new 11th commandment. But what has the Lord actually said about judging? Well, first, we are not the final judges. We should never say or try to deny anyone access to the saving power of Jesus Christ's atonement. However, number two, we are also commanded to make intermediate judgments, as President Oaks calls them, decisions about what is good and what is evil. And here are a few verses to back that up. So Latter-day Saints, it is a-okay for us to use righteous intermediate judgment to decide that Lori Vallow Daybell is not, in fact, a messenger of God, just as much as it's okay for us to judge that a certain influencer's statements online are not in alignment with the teachings of the church. Both types of judgment are okay and even commanded by the Lord. So hold back on making final judgments, but use the Spirit daily to make righteous intermediate judgments.
Okay, thanks so much, Kristen. I have a couple of reactions to her, I think, really bad takes here on the Mormon News Roundup. You can definitely find them here. First of all, to respond to Kristen, I'm not aware of any God telling anyone anything, much less that we shouldn't judge other people. So if you have evidence for your imaginary friends doing something like that, be sure to drop it in the comments below, because that would be life-changing. Until that time comes, we're able to judge one another based on a decent set of morality and the laws of the land, rather than on imaginary dictates from capricious celestial dictators. Number two, she said that Lori was mistaken and was not a messenger of God. How do you determine that, Kristen? How do you know that Lori wasn't on a mission from the Mormon Jesus? Because the Mormon Jesus, as Lori has said in the past, has told people to execute people in cold blood, like Nephi and Laban. How do you determine who is sent from God and who is not, especially when the psychopathic God of Abraham is very fond of unaliving people for capricious reasons? This is the entire problem. It's like Voltaire said. He said, if you can have people believe in absolute absurdities, if you can convince convince people to believe in absolute absurdities, you can convince them to commit atrocities. And we've seen that with Lori Vallow Daybell, no doubt about that. Okay, changing, couple last takes here. This is from Beth Magnetic, one of my favorite accounts out there. Lori Daybell confirmed on her interview with Nate Easton that dropped tonight, as far as she knows, she has not been excommunicated. That is gross. Now, next up here, folks, and one of our last articles for the week, and this is also a big one here, is Mormon influencers are now being paid by the Mormon Corporation to tell you their testimonies. This is big news here. And it all started here with Altiza Stinson over there on Instagram. She said, I left the Mormon church years ago, and now they're in my inbox with a brand new deal. Let's see what's going on here. This is a big article.
And tried to pay me to be an influencer for them, which is absolutely wild. Let's talk about it. They essentially wanted like a brand deal, but for the Mormon church, not just some random skincare company, which is truly wild to me to even be saying out loud. And yes, I know I grew up very Mormon. I was adopted through a Mormon adoption agency. I was sealed to my family in a Mormon temple. I literally went to church every Sunday for 3 hours and then seminary at like 5 a.m. My dad was the bishop of our childhood ward, like very, very Mormon. And in fact, my mom is still a member of the church. My brother is. I have a lot of friends and family who are still active LDS. However, I left the Mormon church as soon as I possibly could, and I haven't looked back, you guys. Like, I don't know why they reached out to me, because I feel like I've been very open about the fact that I am no longer LDS and I will never ever be Mormon. So yes, I was a little surprised when they emailed me. However, when I opened the brief that they sent my way, my jaw was on the actual ground, like speechless. I was expecting to see something pretty mild, like just have brunch with a sister missionary, or, you know, like go hang out with friends, or an invite to go to a Mormon church. No. They were balls to the walls in this brief. They literally wanted a video of me being super heartfelt and talking about how the Book of Mormon changed my life. They want me to share how the Book of Mormon brought peace and clarity and purpose to my life. The Book of Mormon, the one that Joseph Smith found in the ground, you know? I mean this so sincerely. The only thing the Book of Mormon brought in my life was an unhealthy fear of coffee, tattoos, and a weird relationship with showing my shoulders. Like, absolutely not. But it was also confusing because the brief made it very clear, like, do not say Mormon, do not say LDS. They just wanted me to focus on like being a Christian and being Christ-like and Jesus Christ. But then also the Book of Mormon brought me so much peace and purpose. Like, you guys are contradicting yourself. And I debated for a while if I was going to talk about this, because I have no hard feelings towards the LDS church. Like, truly, like I said, my family's still very active. I have a lot of friends who are active. And while it's a no for me, like, I don't have any hard feelings towards like Mormons and the LDS people in general, you know, like, it's just not for me, cool for you. However, it just feels really deceitful to me to like have a whole bunch of influencers being like, the Book of Mormon brought me peace, but in fact, they're being paid thousands of dollars just to say that. Like, get your bag, but also just know, if you're seeing these videos from a whole bunch of influencers being like, I love the Book of Mormon, this is why. The Mormon church emailed me and tried to pay me to be...
Okay, yeah, so this is a big article for this week. So if you just Google here, Mormon church influencers paid, you're going to see a lot of these are from this week here. LDS pay to play, influence campaigns, a lot of things. And you can see that this particular checklist here, which seems to be going around for the influencer campaign here, there's a process and a content checklist. You're supposed to say certain sound bites here. You're supposed to say certain things. You're supposed to not, there's do's and don'ts. Do mention the Church of Jesus Christ within the first 10 seconds. Don't exceed 30 seconds. Don't use the word Mormon. There's an entire process here. And this seems to be, this really looks like the church's branding here. And I think that it is very legitimate. And what we're seeing here also here from Ex-Mormon Reddit here, again, this is from Rebecca Biblioteca, to clarify, the LDS Church pays a marketing agency to reach out to influencers to make the content promoting the Book of Mormon in the church. The marketing agency asks the influencer to create an invoice. There's money involved. The church pays a middleman. So technically speaking, you know, I guess if we want to be very, very clear here, is that the Mormon church is paying a marketing agency, which is then reaching out to these influencers to give you a curated testimony of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm going to give you a lot of takes here from lot of different folks. One of my favorite X accounts out there is Stacker. So the LDS Church is paying online influencers to promote the church, and missionaries still have to pay thousands of their own dollars to promote the church for 2 years. This is a weird world. Indeed it is, Stacker. The church will pay some people to promote its content, but it asks others to pay it to promote the content. That is highly remarkable. And by the way, from my humble research into this, the only people that are being offered these deals, by the way, are women. And you have to be I'm sorry for lack of a better term, you have to be an attractive woman to be able to get this deal. I know that sounds sexist. I don't know how to put that any other way. You have to have the look here of someone who is an influencer online. And then you're going to be able to get some of that sweet, sweet cheddar from the Mormon Corporation to plug a testimony of the Book of Mormon. How genuine is that testimony going to be? Take note of this, dear viewers. Every time you come across one of these influencers in the future, please ask yourself the question, how much money are they getting paid by the Mormon Corporation to tell you that the Book of Mormon has changed their life and has given them a warm bosom feeling? It calls everything into question here. Here's a couple more takes, a lot of takes this week. I was born to get paid by the Mormon Corporation. This is a satirical take. Let me tell you, he was not born to be paid by the Mormon Corporation because he evidently has a Y chromosome, but I get what he's saying here.
Okay, so this is my audition tape for being a Mormon influencer and posting positive things about the Mormon Corporation.
Okay.
Let me just tell you, I hear you're forking out cash for positive posts about the church corporation. And let me just tell you, I was born for this role. I have always dreamed of being an actor. And now I think the universe has just brought this to me where now I can actually get paid for my acting. So I have a few notes, a few scenes, a few ideas.
Okay.
First of all, for $1,000, I will give you a minute of just sobbing, crying, redemption story, coming back to the church, prodigal son, all of that. It's going to be fabulous. You're not a dry eye in the whole place. I promise you, I am perfect for this role. Okay, so for a little bit more, I have a family that has agreed to accept my invitation to baptism live streaming. Now that's going to cost $5,000. I obviously have to split the pot. I have a few friends. I have a gay friend who's willing to say that the devil made him gay and that you guys cured his gayness.
Oh my gosh.
And that he is now straight.
Oh.
That's going to cost $20,000.
Oh my gosh.
But he's fabulous and he can play the role of straight so well. But that's, I mean, $20,000. I think that's a pretty good deal.
Oh my gosh.
What else? Just let me know. I have so many more ideas, but I was born to play this role and I'm ready and I'm really excited. And I've done musical theater. I can sing. So whatever the fuck you guys need, if you're shelling out hard cash to act about the Mormon church, I'm fucking in. I'm your guy. So I'll hit up my Venmo in my link. I have my agent and attorney write up the contract. I will send it your way and we'll get underway. I can have all this done within like 2 days. I'll do fucking 5 posts a day. Whatever you guys want. I like money. I will act my ass off.
Wow. See, that is a beautiful take. So first of all, obviously that is a satire, that is tongue in cheek. Unfortunately, my friend, you were not born to be a Mormon influencer because I believe it is all women. I haven't not seen one male Mormon influencer who has said that they've been approached by the LDS Church. In fact, when you look at a lot of the church's social media, it's usually by young, attractive women. I don't know how to say that any other way. So, but I do find that remarkable that he puts a price tag on all of his BS stories that he's willing to sign up for. Wow, that is absolutely hilarious. And see, this is the whole point here. Jen Next Door, once again, one of my favorite accounts over there on X. The next time you hear someone hyping up the LDS Church or the Book of Mormon online, think of this influencer that we watched earlier who was offered thousands of dollars to make videos saying that the Book of Mormon changed her life, provided peace and clarity and purpose. Is that not deceitful to pay people to lie for the Lord? See, in the Mormon mindset here, it's never wrong to lie for the Lord. Whether a person believes it or not, that's not important because someone else might feel the spirit join the church, and that's all that matters. So yes, deceit is baked into the entire Mormon identity. There's no doubt about that. But here's a couple of other takes here from Becky Squire here, who's going to try to provide an apologetic about this. She says, repeat after me, the church doesn't pay influencers. Really? Wow. Because believe me, this is not what I'm hearing across all social media out there. She says, why does it always seem like the loudest voices outside the experience are the ones trying to defeat it? Oh boy. So take it from someone who actually knows. Oh, great, Becky. Thanks a lot. Let's see what you got going. Stop spinning stories for likes and start standing for truth with creativity, clarity, and Christ-like love. Boy, she's going to set us straight. Let's see what she's got here. First of all, she says, however, they do hire independent contractors who sometimes happen to be influencers to create content for church channels. So yeah, they hire influencers. So no, I'm not going to repeat after you that the church doesn't pay influencers, because just because you're an independent contractor and because the money is going through a marketing agency doesn't mean that the church is not hiring influencers. Get a freaking clue, Becky. Why? Because we are good at creating content. Oh, that's sweet. Why do they pay artists to create paintings for temples or teachers to teach full-time for seminary? Why shouldn't they? Creating a painting is far different from telling someone that the Book of Mormon changed your life. One of those requires an actual conviction. The other one is just part of what you do. Creating a painting, anyone can create a painting. Telling someone that they came to the Mormon Jesus is an entirely different endeavor. Like, get a clue, Becky. My guess is that it feels weird because influencer is a fairly new job most people don't get, and that's okay. No, Becky, the reason it feels weird is because telling people to lie for the Lord is ridiculous. That's why. Let's just stop with the rumor they're completely untrue just to get a like, and let's start sharing light and truth and a little more love. See, this is the apologetics that you're going to get from faithful Latter-day Saints. Don't worry, folks. Everything's on the up and up. Just because somebody's being paid to lie for the Lord, no big deal. The Tomsters over there, by the way, one of my favorite accounts over there on TikTok. By the way, you can find a full lineup of the Tomsters complete anthology on the Mormon News Roundup. I have a series called This Week in Ex-Mormonism, where you can find his stuff on this channel. Be sure to check it out. He's going to talk about Mormon influencers a week ago. He says, don't listen to ex-Mormons. They're all liars. Comment liars down below, and I'll send you a link to earn 10% of my new workshop that'll teach you how to be a spiritual truth detector. Let's see what the Tomsters got going on with the Mormon influencers here.
Mormons out there, Mormon influencers are getting paid. Sign me up. Sign me up, because I'm not getting paid. And the truth is, nobody's getting paid. This is just another lie from the ex-Mormons. You know how they do. You know how they do. Just half-truths and being a bunch of BSers. Excuse my French, but this is a big claim, and it's not happening. Trust me. Turns out that there is a third party out there paying people who are in the church to share their testimonies, but it's not what you think. Okay, this isn't the church is paying influencers to share their testimonies. Okay, no, it would just be ridiculous. Okay, it's a third party asking people to do this and paying them for their time, which of course you want to pay people for their time. Having people just volunteer things, like let's say volunteer to like clean chapels or something, you would never do that. You would pay people for their time, okay? So it's totally different, and it's not what the ex-Mormons are claiming, okay? Ew, gross, them, gross. Okay, so yes, of course, the church is paying influencers to share their testimonies. This is nothing new, okay?
Yeah, the Tomsters always has a good take. It's always ex-Mormon lies until we find out that it actually is true here. We also have over there, once again, Megan from Generally Unquotable is going to give us the take on Mormon influencers getting paid. Let's see what she has to say.
Church is paying people to promote them. Thousands and thousands of dollars, apparently. And they are controlling the script.
Mormon Church emailed me and tried to pay me to be an influencer for them. They essentially wanted like a brand deal. When I opened the brief that they sent my way, my jaw was on the actual ground, like speechless. I was expecting to see something pretty mild, like just have brunch with a sister missionary, or, you know, like go hang out with friends, or an invite to go to a Mormon church. No. They were balls to the walls in this brief. They literally wanted a video of me being super heartfelt and talking about how the Book of Mormon changed my life. They've made it very clear, like, do not say Mormon, do not say LDS. They just wanted me to focus on, like, being a Christian and being Christ-like and Jesus Christ, but then also the Book of Mormon brought me so much peace and purpose.
And this is the real rub for me. When I was a young member, the church was peculiar and unique, and we were proud of it. Now they are embarrassed and literally paying people to try and make them seem less different to get converts.
However, it just feels really deceitful to me to like have a whole bunch of influencers being like, the Book of Mormon brought me peace, but in fact, they're being paid thousands of dollars just to say that. Like, get your bag, but also just know if you're seeing these videos from a whole bunch of influencers being like, I love the Book of Mormon, this is why.
Of course they are.
Very good take out there, Megan. Very nice. And just to clarify, just for the sake of my humble audience out there, I've never been offered to be an influencer for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. What a missed opportunity, by the way. They could have given me thousands of dollars, by the way. There's no doubt. They could have given me thousands of dollars. The Mormon Church paying influencers, this is getting a lot of traction out there, especially from one of my favorite TikTok accounts out there, Uncertainly Carly.
So I've been seeing posts and videos about the fact that the Mormon Church is paying influencers or offering them brand deals to promote either the Book of Mormon or their testimonies or just the church in general. And some ex-Mormons are annoyed by this, and like, I get it, rightfully so. Some Mormons are in comment sections saying, this isn't true. They're not doing this.
Really?
They're not paying influencers to promote the church. Why would they do that? And I'm sitting here thinking, why is anybody surprised by this? Why is anybody shocked that a corporation, which is what the church is doing corporate shit?
Yeah, I'm not surprised by it at all. Good point there, Carly.
Have been doing this for a long time. And I think once you see the church as a corporation, everything they do makes complete and total sense. They are a corporation. They are a business. And businesses care mostly about their bottom line and their image. I mean, missionaries are just salespeople. Why do you think missionaries come home and then go right into door-to-door sales?
Yeah, missionary work for the Mormon Church is door-to-door Masonic underwear salesmanship. That's what it all boils down to.
Because they use all the same tactics that other corporations use to recruit people for their businesses.
Absolutely, 100%.
For more money. Does it feel sleazy and icky and gross and manipulative? Yeah, absolutely. But hello, corporations are sleazy and icky and manipulative. They are a corporation. So yeah, of course they are going to reach out to influencers and pay them money to promote them, just like every other business.
It's all about the return on investment. When you spend $1 for an influencer, if somebody joins the church, that person could end up potentially paying millions of dollars worth of tithing over the course of their life. So yeah, it's all about the sweet, sweet cheddar when it comes to the Mormon Church here. And it's not just ex-Mormon lies, as the Tom Sir was joking around about here. Bonky over there on X, one of my favorite accounts there, says, at Curtin McMonkey, as someone who was a paid influencer for the LDS Church, even after LDS leadership knew I was no longer active, the LDS Church is literally just a massive business corporation seeking to increase its number of paying customers, tithing in exchange for temple or a temple recommend and eternal life. See, we have a number of people, not just one or two, who are saying that they have been approached by the Mormon Corporation to be an influencer. I believe that even Haley over there on Mormon Stories has said that she was paid to shill for the Mormon Church. This is, in my opinion, highly disturbing. People's so-called spiritual experiences shouldn't be up for sale. And if they are receiving a handsome paycheck by the Mormon Corporation, then I think that their particular, whatever narrative that they're trying to spin is called into question here. Is the LDS Church paying influencers to give positive testimonies to the Book of Mormon? And does that concern you? Why would that be something the church feels that it needs to do? See, here we have another email here that has been leaked from this marketing agency, who is a digital marketing agency for the director of a particular company on behalf of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, saying that they're seeking several videos to help raise awareness and encourage people to become Mormons.
So it's come out that allegedly the LDS Church is reaching out to influencers through marketing agencies in order to pay them to make videos. Videos about what, you might ask? Videos about the Book of Mormon and how it brought them peace, clarity, meaning. Basically to give a testimony about the Book of Mormon and how the LDS Church has changed their lives. The ad campaign briefs share some do's and don'ts here. Do mention the Church of Jesus Christ,
Do use a joyful and hopeful tone of voice. What's
joyful? See, that's where I let you down, dear viewers. I don't use a joyful and hopeful tone of voice.
Joyful and hopeful tone of voice. What's really interesting is the don'ts. It says, do not use the words Mormon, LDS, or Latter-day Saint. This is the full ad brief here. Now, my question is, if this is true, Latter-day Saints, does this concern you at all? Does this concern you that they are paying people to give a positive testimony of the Book of Mormon in order to draw people into the church? It seems as if they're wanting to really be viewed as mainstream Christianity, and that they are telling you not to use certain words that might have negative connotations. And as far as I'm aware, the church has confirmed that they are working with this ad agency. So let me know if this concerns you.
Yeah, I can tell you, I'm not an active Latter-day Saint much anymore these days, but for active Mormons, there's very few of them that are going to be concerned at all. We already saw Becky who tried to defend it, and we're going to see others try to defend it. It's no problem to lie for the Lord according to Mormonism. There's no doubt about that. Now, here is my favorite shill for the Mormon church here, Jasmine Rappley, who's going to say no hate to the creator, just adding some potential context. Oh, wow. Okay. For the record, the church has never reached out to Jasmine like this to pay to share her testimony for the Book of Mormon. I find that to be incredibly distasteful because she worked for Scripture Central for a long period of time, which is at least in part funded through the Mormon Church corporations. The Mormon Church will send money to a nonprofit who then gives that money to Scripture Central. The church never writes a check directly to someone. They're always going to pass it through someone else. That way, in case the content creator says something that is politically unpalatable, then the church has distance from that particular person. The church is always terrified of losing its tax-exempt status. And if one of these influencers were to promote a political party or were to have a particular political platform, and the Mormon church was directly funding that, that could call the church's nonprofit status into question. They're terrified of that, which is why they always filter their money through someone else first. So Jasmine has never gotten a check directly from the Mormon church, but she has through its intermediaries, just so that we're clear here. My favorite sweet spirit out there, Jasmine, is going to weigh in on this entire controversy. Thanks, Jasmine. Let's see what we
However,
got.
it just feels really deceitful to me to have a whole bunch of influencers being like, the Book of Mormon brought me peace, but in fact they're being paid thousands of dollars just to say that.
For the record, I've never had the church reach out to me like this to pay me to share my testimony of the Book of Mormon. And from what I understand, it's actually against church policy to pay influencers to make sponsored posts like a traditional brand deal. So if I had to take a step back and just guess what might be going on here, it looks like the church may have been looking to hire talent to appear in church videos for church channels, maybe even participate in the creative process, but not make a brand deal sponsored post for the influencers channel. And based on the creator's story, it looks like this request was not coming from the church itself, but a third-party ad agency. So we have no idea how closely this third party may or may not have been following church policies. And this also was a request, not a finished product. Clearly, this content never made it to the finish line. So we have no idea if this ever would have even seen the light of day once going through proper channels. That is just some context I would consider before jumping to conclusions. Again, I've never been paid by a church ad agency to post my testimony, and I don't know of a single influencer who has. I share my testimony of the Book of Mormon because I believe it. It has changed my life for the better, and I think that is worth talking about.
People who are receiving handsome paychecks from the Mormon Corporation to talk about their quote-unquote testimonies are extremely unlikely to admit to doing so because it would completely invalidate what they're going to what they're all about. So the fact that we don't have anyone out there admitting, hey guys, I'm shilling for the Mormon Jesus, is not evidence that this is not happening. We have a number of people who have been approached by marketing agencies to promote Mormon content. See, and now we got to have every influencer out there who's going to have to say whether they're being paid by the Mormon church to create influencing content or not. Thanks, Jasmine. We really appreciate this. I have just a couple last takes. I want to get you out of here real soon here. Girls Camp Podcast. Haley is going to be talking about this influencing deal here. She's so glad that this has come to light here. Fascinating and also troublesome. Hey, you can buy anything in this world with money. Book of Mormon influencer brand deals?
Looks like the Mormon Church is offering to pay influencers to share their testimony of the Book of Mormon. If you don't believe me, go check out this creator. I'll tag her below. She is sharing very bravely, might I add, because she actually got emailed to do this. She's even sharing screenshots of the content brief. In the content brief, it specifies that there should be a call to action, inviting people to meet with the missionaries. There's a list of do's and don'ts. Interestingly, on the don'ts list is saying Mormon, Latter-day Saints, or LDS, as if this wasn't already manipulative enough. I find this very bizarre and also unethical, because a testimony, as I learned growing up in the church, is supposed to be something very sacred, very personal, a literal witness from God through the Holy Ghost. This whole thing really blurs the lines between authentic belief and branding. Not to mention, how are you supposed to trust the earnestness of someone's testimony if they are being paid for it, and if they are supposed to fit that testimony within these specific content parameters? It feels like buying people's faith in order to promote the church. Once that's happening, where does that end? Now that we have this whole proof, I'm really curious to see if we start seeing some of this content coming out that fits within this content brief. And if so, we know it's paid for. Good luck out there to the Mormon influencers, I guess. Curious to hear how much you think your testimony is worth selling for. Well.
That's a good question. How much do you think a testimony of the Mormon Jesus is worth? Good point. That's why, folks, right down here, I am Heavenly Father sponsored. I'm not going to accept any filthy lucre from the Mormon Corporation. Although once upon a time, I did accept filthy lucre from Signature Books, but that's a subject for another conversation. Buying faith, how much do you think that that is worth? And these supposed testimonies, which, by the way, are just merely subjective anecdotes and are not good evidence for absolutely anything. I thought that they were supposed to be genuine. Now they have to follow a formulaic checklist. But if you go back to primary, when I was raised in primary, you'd have the parents behind the kids telling them, whispering in their ears, I know the church is true. I know that Jesus is the Christ. I know that Joseph Smith was a prophet. And I know that the Book of Mormon is true, and that the church is the only true church on earth. You would have people whispering in little kids' ears, just like I was when I was a baby, brainwashed into this indoctrination. That's still happening now for money in modern Mormonism. I find that to be highly disturbing. Folks, last article here. I'm just going to give you one here. This is big always. The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. Now they are going to be joining Dancing with the Stars. This is our last article of the week. Thanks so much for sticking with me here. Let's see what these gals are up to now.
Let's get ready to rumba. See what we did there? Dancing with the Stars is assembling their all-star cast, and this morning we know two more celebs who are ready to dance their way into the ballroom for season 34. And we've got a special message from the two new additions, The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives stars Whitney Levitt and Jen Affleck. Check it out.
Hey guys, it's Whitney and Jen from The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. We're so excited to be joining Dancing with the Stars this season. Catch Mom Talk on the dance floor. I'm coming for that mirror ball.
Everybody should give it a go. All right, Whitney and Jen will join previously announced stars Robert Irwin and Alex Earl on the dance floor this fall. Now, that news was revealed in the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives reunion, which dropped overnight. But that's the last spoiler. I am not, George, going to give you any more spoilers. The special is drama-filled. It's hosted by former Bachelor star Nick Viall, and it features never-before-seen footage of the series. You can stream the reunion right now on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus.
Oh, that's how you say it.
Season 34 of Dancing with the Stars airs Tuesdays this fall on ABC and Disney Plus this September. And we'll be revealing the full lineup of the stars and their partners. That's happening September 3rd, right here on GMA.
And not a single spoiler.
Wow, now that's how you do the news, folks. That was quite the news article. Appreciate that out there. Very interesting stuff here. On the Mormon News Roundup, just to take you out of here, we have tomorrow night the Mormon movie reviews, where we will be reviewing LDS Homefront commercials. The church speaking of paid influencers, used to run lots of commercials back in the 70s and 80s. We will be looking at a few of the most notable of these particular commercials. And the church actually won a couple of awards that went along with this Homefront series. They used to call this the Heart Cell. Anyway, spoiler alert, come join me tomorrow night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Mormon movie reviews. And on this particular channel, every Sunday night, we go live with the Mormon News Roundup. Be sure to join us on YouTube. You do not want to miss it. I want to give a couple of, also this week, I'm going to be debunking Wendy Ulrich over there. Faith is self-deception. I will be debunking her. In fact, every single night this week at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you will have new content right here on the Mormon News Roundup on this YouTube channel. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to give a couple of thanks out there to the people who support this particular podcast, including the members on YouTube, Emrak, Starla, Jeffrey, Garrick, and Lee. Thanks so much for supporting. And on Patreon, Scab, RMW, David Berg, Blaine, Brent, and especially Sophronia. Thank you so much for supporting the Mormon News Roundup. That means a great deal to me. Ladies and gentlemen, we did it. It is July 6, 2025. We're coming to you from the crossroads of the East where the truth runs free. I am your humble host, D-Vase. That is Talent on Loan from Cola. Before you go, can you hit the like, the subscription? I'd be very grateful for that. And remember that no unhallowed hand can stop the Mormon News Roundup.
Oh my gosh, you guys, the latest Mormon News Roundup is like literally the best thing ever. Totally, everyone needs to watch it. Seriously, subscribe right now.